everyone, and welcome to Child by Podcast, the Graduate Program edition. We're here with your hosts and graduates, Antara,
Meaghan,
and Andrea. We're all current grads here at McCabes, and in this episode, we're taking you behind the scenes, just applying for the grad program, how we applied, what the rotations have been like, general tips, and what we've learned so far.
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. When I was applying for grad programs, I found resources that transparently spoke about the process really helpful. There's so much you don't see on the job and firm's website. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of a clearer picture of what it's actually like.
Yeah, now, so on to why we chose the grad program at McCabes. So for me, the program here was really appealing because I wasn't entirely sure what kind of law I wanted to specialize in, and you wanted to come to a firm which gave me, an exposure to a variety of areas of law, but have, give me the support while I figured it out. What I really liked about McCabes was that the program was structured, but they did it in a way where it didn't feel really overwhelming.
Yeah, I felt the exact same way. I feel like there's a lot of pressure, like leaving university to know what you want to do. And I saw the grad program as a way to learn through doing. And what struck out to me about McCabes was that, it's big enough to have the resources and like interesting work, but small enough that you don't feel like a cog in the wheel. And everyone's just super approachable and just wants you to grow, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. And just back to the firm's tagline of national firm boutique culture, then the firm's like large enough to cover a range of matters, national level, across the different practice groups. But I like how the teams are structured, to feel like you have that support and you have a smaller, intimate team. So I really like that about the firm.
Yeah, I was similar. I was really intentional with what I wanted and the firms I chose, and that was important to me. I wanted to get experience, but I wanted to have the support and the culture. I did my research, and that was something I'd really recommend. Find a firm that fits for you. I spoke to current grads. I checked out our firm's values. So again, excellence, integrity, and courage. And McCabe's did stand out for me. And I remember reading about the culture and speaking to people about the culture, and I knew that's where I wanted to be. It sounded like what I was looking for. So I went ahead and applied.
Yeah, and so just moving on to the application process, I found that it was quite detailed but pretty straightforward. I originally found the listing on Seek, but I know that it was featured on like uni, like job boards, and just on the McCabe's website as well. We had to submit a resume, academic transcript, I believe, written questions, and then a cover letter.
Yeah, and one of the questions I remember was we had to summarize a McCabe's article. So as part of our firm, we put out a lot of articles and a lot of work, I guess. And I really enjoyed that question because I found it a really interesting way that, tested how we think and write, but at the same time, it was getting me to engage in really interesting material. The other questions were a little bit more behavioral. So stuff like working in a team, dealing with challenges and so on like that.
Yeah, and I really appreciated the application encouraged us to bring our whole selves and not just the academic side. And I really talked about my volunteering work, uni societies I was part of, and I really felt like you didn't have to be this cookie cutter candidate. And especially when you find it's common that, in big firms and mid-tier firms, sometimes they really just filter you out from your academics. I really appreciate that McCabe's had a more holistic perspective.
Yeah. And so moving on to interview preparation, we found that you have to just practice your behavioral questions. So using the STAR method, which stands for situation, task, action, and result. I found that McCabe's had a lot of questions that kind of assessed like teamwork, collaboration, communication, and problem-solving skills. So before my interviews, I came up with a bunch of like go-to scenarios, like a time I resolved conflict or the time that I took initiative on a project. And just kind of having that in my back pocket really helped with like easing the nerves.
Yeah, I totally agree. As you said, Antara, it was a very holistic approach, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do research and due diligence. So before I'd go into my conversations and stages interviews, I did a little bit of research. I looked up who I was going to be talking with. I wanted to tailor my approach and my questions, and that was something I found really helpful and really helped discussion flow. Was that I was able to kind of ask specific questions. I knew who I was talking to, and I could tailor my answers. And that means I could ask them, about their written articles. Do they sit in certain committees? How they found certain aspects of the law?
Yeah, and bouncing off that, Meg, about the questions, I really feel like that's a really important part. Make sure to prepare questions at the end and ask a lot of interesting ones, tailoring it towards the team, things like about the team cultures, like what does a typical day for a grad look like? And it really just shows that you're genuinely interested and you really just want to be a fit to the firm and see how you can contribute. Also, funnily enough, another thing that really helped me with my interview prep was listening to this exact same podcast from last year's graduate cohort. So I remember I thought that was just a really unique take for the firm to have a podcast where you had grads who had literally been in that experience last year, be able to share the insight.
Yeah, and you also don't want to forget the basics. So, like being on time, which means be early. And how you arrive to the office, dress in business attire. So for girls, dress pants, blazers, guys, suits. Maybe bring like a notebook to show that you're engaged.
Yeah, definitely. I think having that kind of prep already organized allows you to show up in your best self on the day. And I'll be honest, like the idea of multiple stages, like it does feel a little bit intimidating. But once you get started, it does become easier to chat with people if you've done your correct research and prep before. But one thing I found about my interviews here at McCabes was that everyone was really down to earth, and it just felt I was having like a really nice conversation. Yeah, exactly. I think the way it's structured, so there's 4 stages that we did. First with HR, then we did HR and a lawyer. Then we did a really fun recruitment activity as a group. And finally, another one was the one-to-one interview with 2 principals at the firm. And I honestly would say that all felt really conversational, really down to earth. And it was something I really took away as a positive for the firm.
Yeah, I think we should talk more about the like recruitment activity, because that experience was definitely unique and anything that I've ever done. Yeah. So we were asked to create a marketing campaign for Cancer Council, and what was cool about it is that it mirrored the actual like biggest morning tea fundraiser that we hosted as grads later on.
Yeah.
So it was really full circle, which I thought was really cute. And I think with that, a lot of people worry about being the loudest person in the room, but honestly, I felt like McCabes was just looking at like how self-aware you are and how you communicate with others.
Yeah, that recruitment activity, honestly, I just found it so cool how we literally just did that as for a cancer council, and it just showed, as you said, it just came full circle. And I really appreciated how they organized an activity for an actual event that we would organize, and it wasn't just like a mock scenario. So I thought that was really cool. And the final stage was the final interview, and I was a little nervous for that just because it was with 2 principals. But honestly, the moment I walked into the room, my nerves just went away because they were just so warm and down to earth. And I really appreciated how it really just felt like, as you said, Meg, like just a chat. I thought it was going to be this formal, intimidating thing, and they really just wanted to know who you were as a person, and I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, I think we all felt the same, which is a really big positive. Once you start the grad program at McCabes, we'll give you a little bit of insight into that. So there's 5 rotations, and they're a really great way to experience a lot of different areas of the firm and different practice groups within law. And it's nice to see how each team operates. They all operate differently. People have different styles. So you rotate across our 3 divisions at the firm. So we've got commercial, government, and insurance. And you really gain a broad spectrum of skills that can be applied when you settle on a team at the end of the 12-month program. I believe in each rotation so far, I've learned different practice management, I've learned different styles of writing, and I think it assists me as a junior lawyer when I take the next step into running my own matters. I'll have a background and a really nice depth of experience.
Yeah, exactly. And, with the 5 rotations, so they each run for 9 weeks. And I think it's just a really great opportunity to see which area of law you line in, what type of law, whether you're into litigation more, or you're into a corporate environment more, and what just interests you the best, And I think you can be really surprised to see that you could be interested in an area that you never thought you would like. And I think that was something that applied to me. There were some areas of law that I didn't think I would find interesting, but I was put in a rotation in a few of them, and then I didn't realize I actually really thought that area of law was interesting, and that's something that I would potentially want to go into in the future. So I really liked that, when you have the option to explore different rotations, you kind of are exposed to different things, and it just gives you better understanding.
Yeah, and I think the rotations also offer you the opportunity to truly just immerse yourself within the firm. You're not just shadowing lawyers, you're given the opportunity to draft advices, attend hearings, attend like conferences, and honestly just like building professional development, professional like relationships within the team. And I think also your responsibility grows as your confidence grows, which I think is really nice. And you also get like formal feedback through your end of rotation reviews and just like check-ins with HR that can kind of just like provide you with some support.
Yeah, definitely. And you touched on relationships, Andrea, but I think, which is very important, I'm so fortunate with that experience. But one thing that's also been really nice takeaway is the buddy program that you get on the grad program. So once you join the program, you get a buddy for the year who kind of just checks in with you, checks how you're going, if you need help. And then you also get buddies within each practice group to help with the more technical skills. And it offers an instant network at the firm. Really early on, we felt really well connected, really welcomed. Having that buddy with you throughout the year, you just feel like there's always someone, and you're never sitting there thinking, I don't know who I can talk to or where I can go. You've always got someone to navigate you, but at the same time, they offer you enough confidence to kind of go and try things yourself. It's a really nice balance, and I think a great part of the program.
Yeah, it honestly just helps you transition into each team, I found. And it also helped that a lot of the buddies were like previous grads, so they could kind of just give you that like genuine insight. I feel like I asked my buddy so many questions. And she was so lovely, and she was like, "Yeah, like I'll help you out." So yeah, I found it really, really good.
No, same. I remember in my first rotation, all I did was constantly bug my buddy and like tap her shoulder
Yeah.
every 2 seconds. But I really liked that because she was also like a grad last year. You know, you could ask her any question, especially the small things when you're adjusting to a new environment, especially when you don't want to resort to, you know, immediately asking someone who's senior or a partner. You know, what I mean?
That can be daunting, and I think. Like I said to my buddy a few times, I'm so sorry for all the questions. And they've literally been like,
Never
that is
say
what I'm
sorry.
here for. Yeah,
Even-
that is
yeah.
what I'm here
Yeah,
for. And
exactly.
it's been really helpful. And I think it's allowed me to kind of push myself in terms of my work, because I knew there would be someone that's behind me, supporting me, making me want to do that. It really encouraged me to, I guess, develop my skills.
Yeah.
Another part of the program, and one thing I love about McCabes, is we're really encouraged to get involved in stuff that goes beyond just our legal work. So we've organised things, as you said before, Antara, like the Biggest Morning Tea, which is a cancer initiative. That brought people together across the firm. It was so nice seeing principals and grads. We all contributed baked goods. It was a really nice event.
No, it was so great. It was so nice seeing senior people like baking and taking their time to do it. And seeing everyone just come together for a common cause. There's also other chances to get, you know, involved in firm-wide initiatives like City to Surf, which we'll be doing this year.
We hope.
in the lowest, in the fastest group.
You have McCabes sports teams, or even just attending the end of month drinks. It's just a really nice way to wind down and chat to people in a more relaxed setting.
Yeah, and I think there's also the MC advocacy, which I found really daunting. And it's basically just like a firm-wide like mock court program where you argue cases in front of principals who are acting as judges. And it's such a good way to practice advocacy within like a low-pressure environment, which you'll obviously have to do as a lawyer in the future. You get given practical tips on how to improve your court craft, such as like tone, structure, pacing, and how to respond to like tricky questions. And it definitely gave me a lot more confidence when I started working on pleadings themselves.
For sure. I think like for me, that was probably one of the biggest parts of the program that I was like, wow, this is really cool, and this is a really great initiative.
Really unique.
Yeah, it's very unique. And speaking to people, it doesn't seem like it's a thing across the board. And I found it so helpful that we could kind of practice this etiquette so that when we do appear in court, we've got that in the books. Like we're ready to go. And it was so fun as well. And I learned a lot from it.
Yeah, exactly. And we also have Child By Podcast. It's such a cool creative outlet where you get the grads involved, and we have full control of the topics from the start to the end, research to scripting and editing. We've done a lot of cool episodes in defamation, Brad knockoffs, and pill testing, and I think it's just a really cool way to see legal issues in a different format.
Yeah, and all these things are really, really encouraged in your grad year. You're not just expected to sit and work without speaking to anyone, without getting involved. We really want you to explore these things, try new things, find what excites you in the profession, how you like to operate, how you like to connect with people. And the experience really does feel holistic. So you grow not just as a lawyer, but as a team player, as a professional, and you really contribute to the firm's culture.
Yeah, so that's been our journey so far in the McCabes Graduate Program. We hope this gave you some like real insight into like the behind the scenes. And if you're applying, best of luck. Maybe we'll see you around the office soon.
Yeah, we'd love to.
Thank you. And this has been Child By Podcast.